Hello, welcome back to Copilot Learning Hub live. Today we have a two-part episode and you're gonna love it because it is on a topic all of you keep asking us about, which is, okay, cool, Microsoft, you released a whole lot of Copilots, but how do we actually implement them in our organization? Do you implement them at once? Do you turn them all on? Do you build your own? What's the plan? So instead of me pontificating, we decide to bring an expert. Please welcome Kevin to the show. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Donna. Great to speak to you.
You too.
So my name's Kevin McDonnell. I'm the Copilot Strategy Lead and Modern Workplace AI Lead at Avanade. So speaking with a lot of clients about exactly what you're saying. You've got all these Copilots, all these options. You want to make AI happen. How do you actually go about doing that? What should you think about? So I get to live these conversations day in, day out at the moment.
Okay, so you work with a ton of customers and you work with customers all over the world, and you've been seeing
Absolutely.
a lot of trends of everyone kind of running into the same issues over and over and over again, right? And I can tell you, we at Microsoft have probably saw the same issue last year, and I am so grateful that you and your team are working on this problem to help our global customers, because we don't want everyone to go through the same growing pains we did. And the more we can have this really nice framework for how you can do this, the better it's going to be for the entire next generation of people who are trying to, use Copilot to do stuff in their business. So I hear you've got, I hear you've got like a strategy framework for how you think about just bringing Copilot into a world. Do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's important you have that strategy, that AI strategy on what you're going to do with things. Because if you don't have one, if you say, hey, Microsoft, I want to buy a load of Copilot for M365 licenses or a whole load of Copilot for services licenses, and that's going to make it happen. And at the same time, everyone's looking at other materials that may be available in other areas, and they're using that in their day-to-day life, and they bring it all together. You're not considering all these different things, and you're going to end up with people duplicating, going out and buying a license that's there and using things in a way that maybe hasn't got the same level of security that the Microsoft tools have. So bringing together that strategy is the key to it. But one of the bits on the framework is to start and look at that. It's not just about saying, I want AI. That's the important thing. What is the underlying need? What is you're actually looking to achieve from it? What are you trying to gain? What are the impressive things within there? And then look at what tools you've got to deliver that. This may be a little controversial to say, but some of it doesn't need AI. I hate to say it. Some of it could be plain automation. It could be just getting your processes in place. So work out what tools you've got and what benefit they're going to bring. Think about what resources you need to actually make that happen. Is that about training up people? Is it about bringing in other partners, bringing in those expertise? And my favorite one that I'm looking at and thinking, oh, I need to do my better accessibility checker. So hopefully everyone can read that, but assessing the value. Don't just buy things for the sake. Don't spend a load of money. Realize a little bit that return on investment. There's a certain amount of that, but value, controversial to say this, is not just about money. It's about how does it make people feel? How does it make people more engaged with the workplace? How does it make them stick with your organization? How does it make them more effective within there? Which will play hopefully into the kind of longer term on that return of investment, but don't just focus on that, those pure numbers. That is absolutely part of it and something to consider in there, but looking at those larger pieces.
So,
and looking at that longer term.
What I really like about what you said right now is there's three things that are so important, and I hope all of you resonate with this, because the first one is AI is not the answer for everything. Generative AI generates. Those are very good use cases. It does also do retrieval and all of these things, but when a use case is not generative, think about how else you can do it before you resort to generative, which is going to be, non-deterministic and a little strange for some people. The second thing you said that I think is so important is really looking at what is it that you're trying to do, right? Before you go spend a whole bunch of money on something that maybe you don't need to spend that much money on, but while keeping in mind that people are already using AI at work. So shadow AI, right, is a whole new topic. People are already using the free versions of things in the world. We're like, people are going to use it. So saying we're not going to do AI in our business is actually not a logical thing, right? You and I both had jobs in the 90s when people are like, oh, we're not going to give our employees access to the internet. Guess what everyone did? Access the internet. It just happened. And to me, this conversation is coming up again. Like, shadow AI is a real thing. And that third thing, like, ROI is measured in decades, not in weeks and months. So you know what I mean, right? Where everyone's like, oh, we didn't see dramatic reduction in blah overnight. We're canceling this. We're like, do you know how long it took for people to figure out how to use Outlook? We were all there, right? You and I were there when Outlook was introduced. And that took a decade for people to learn to put something in the subject line.
Sorry, Donna, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm only 21. I don't know any of these.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just love how you've laid this out. This is great.
No, it's great. And I think if we look at that value, one of the things that we've seen a lot with rolling out Copilot for M365 is people haven't necessarily always done more because they've got that higher productivity. What they've done is produce higher quality work because they've been able to get to a base version quicker and create something better from that. I'm trying not to make a rude word there, but how on earth, let's say, do you actually define that? Because defining quality for many information workers is a very hard thing to do at a strategic level. And that's why we kind of see that sentiment. Do you feel you're creating better quality work plays into that value, which may not, as you say, get immediately reflected on that return on investment. But we've seen time and time again, organizations that do these things properly look better over the longer term and see that investment happen from there.
Absolutely.
But moving on to the next one, I think if you're getting that, if you're not using this responsibly and in a compliant way, then you're going to get hit on the longer term. And, you know, we can look at compliance, making sure you're meeting, whether you're in kind of banking, finance, pharmaceuticals, or even things as simple as GDPR, making sure you're using that personal data correctly. But it's also around, is this a responsible way? Are you doing this in a way that you could happily stand up and talk about this in a public place? Could you go out and say, yeah, we're happy to talk about this? If you're doing things like analyzing lots of CVs coming in and you can't really dictate how you've got to understanding how you choose what's there, are you really comfortable with that? So I think that responsible use is such a critical way. It takes a long time to build up trust. And as certain companies have found out in the last few weeks, it's very quick to lose that trust very quickly. So we want to make sure that you're considering that up front.
Absolutely right.
As well. Finally, penultimate, make sure you're delivering. Don't just talk about these strategies. Don't talk about these big, grand ideas. Think about how you can get some of that value as quick as possible. Not all of it. Make sure you're getting that ongoing view. Look at whether it's smaller groups, specific use cases and scenarios, specific groups of people that can bring that value, get it working for them quickly. And I would say looking at that responsible and compliant use, maybe in certain cases, you're hitting a kind of riskier area with that you can move along with a smaller case that as you scale it up, you've got to consider there. But understand that you're getting that value for those groups and deliver and move on and iterate. And as you're doing that, measure that success. And I'd probably put on that, as I know you love well, celebrate that success too. Make sure you're shouting about that and enjoying it and talking about what works and what didn't work as part of that as well.
I think that what didn't work is key, because that was important. When we tried to do rollouts within specific groups, there's things that obviously worked, like having a set of champs, doing one prompt a week, etc. worked. What didn't work is doing one ginormous training and being like, okay, everyone will figure it out. Pro tip. No, they won't. No, they won't. It was the repetitive training of like a little bit of training every week rather than one ginormous training and expecting people to shift the tool they already use, right? Or the method they already use.
The habits, isn't it?
That's exactly it. And I think it's so important to document these did not work and everyone else learned from it. And that's why I think doing rollouts in an org by org, works way better than trying to roll out to 250,000 people at the same time.
Absolutely, absolutely, getting that out there.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think, and you can apply this to your general AI strategies. This is not necessarily something to just look at for Copilot.
Right.
I want to mention too many other tools, but apparently there are other AI-related subjects out there that you can bring into the same one. And I think that kind of comes on as to how you decide what those tools you need in your box. And many organizations, I'm talking with an organization at the moment that's got things like ServiceNow, like Salesforce and others that all play into this. How do you decide what nodes to go into there? But I will be honest, I'm very Copilot and Microsoft focused. So why is that tool Copilot? And actually, what are we talking about when we say Copilot? Because I love this conversation. I know we met up in Germany recently at a conference, and you end up chatting to people a bit about Copilot, and you're 2 or 3 minutes in before you realize, oh, you mean Copilot and Power Platform? Oh, you mean GitHub Copilot? Oh, you mean Copilot for Microsoft 365? And you can talk for a little while before you realize there's different things in there. So there are lots of different Copilots, even if a lot of that underlying structure underneath is the same, there are different points to this. So what do we actually mean by a Copilot? To me, it's something that helps increase that efficiency and quality. It's that generative AI capability that fits within there in the flow of what you're trying to do. And it helps you be more innovative and creative because you can try out new things quicker. You can work through those different elements, things that, especially someone who's kind of techie and, as my wife mocks me, not the most creative person naturally. I cannot draw a picture for the life of me. But suddenly with some of the Copilots, I can draw images. I can have an idea, such as some of these, polydesic images here that were generated with Microsoft Designer. I could not draw a thing like this if I tried over months and months and months. But suddenly I can bring that creativity because I can bring those ideas and make them happen. But also I can take in lots of information, whether it's a single document, a collection of all my information, and gather and analyze that. So when we come through, we can look at actually those as a different Copilot within there. So how do you then align these? I remember hearing you speak at the South Coast Summit in the UK.
Yeah.
I think at that time there was 156 or 157 different Copilots. And we sat there and kind of went, whoa, this is a little bit over the top.
Some of it is SKUs, right? Some of it is SKUs. I think in terms of number of Copilot experiences and products, right? Because Microsoft has thousands of products. Some number of them have gotten the Copilot treatment. And I think what's really interesting is when a product gets a Copilot treatment, it's across SKUs. So if there's a desktop version, a web version, an iOS and Android, that is 4 SKUs. That is 4 implementation of Copilot, because that's 4 calls to APIs, baked into the product code that it's written on. So you're really shipping 4 products at once, fixing 4 sets of bugs, 4 sets of behavior, et cetera. And form factor, it depends, right? Web form factors can be different than mobile. So it really is like looking at 4 products to have similar experience, but it won't be the same. So that's been a really fun and cool challenge. But to me, Kevin, this is like search. Do you remember when search showed up and people are like, what is search? Is it in the operating system? Is it in the apps? Are they same? Are they different? And the answer is yes. Yeah. Right? The answer is yes. So we had, when search started showing up in apps, everyone's freaking out like, oh my gosh, what does this search do? What does that search do? Copilot, I feel like a similar treatment. Search, spell check, all of these things that have shown up in products over the last X many years, it's a feature. And now Copilot is a feature to help you be more innovative, more productive, more all these things. And I love how you framed it here in saying like, yes, it is all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think I work with a lot of techies, and I'll be honest, I hang out with a lot of techies as well. So our kind of first thought is like, which product is this? Which license is this? How is this Copilot going to fit into this technology? Yeah. But what we should be thinking about is those, and similar to what you're saying there with search, is what are the experiences that people come through? And I think it fits in with that of what are the different endpoints that you see. I pulled this slide together, which is going to animate in a minute. Don't get too kind of confused about what's showing there. But starting to think about what it means to people. And if we think about those copilots, we've got ones that are available for everyone. That Copilot in Bing, that Copilot in Edge, Copilot for Microsoft 365 for Windows. That's kind of the same for everyone. It covers a lot of different functionality. It's there. It brings that generative AI forward to you. But then you've got the more specific ones that start to look at the role. So whether you're people in sales, in service, whether you're developers who are using the GitHub Copilot and the different elements there that kind of fit within those Copilot for finance, helping those finance people come through in there. And that services that particular role. And then we start to dig into those more ones by scenario. And probably you're thinking here about more custom Copilots. And this is where organizations is almost the tip of that triangle that they can build up to say, I want to build something that hits this particular element. I want to solve this particular need that's very specific. And that's where organizations have that capability that we'll come on to a bit there. But you can also slice it a different way by you've got that customer experience. And that can be not necessarily just customers using Copilots, but how you support them. So some of the elements in dynamics, such as the kind of marketing elements of that, your service elements, how do you make the experience of customers better? But then you've got how do you make the employee experience better? So you've got the those things I talked about, getting that quality out from things. It's easier to get quality. It's easier to get that innovative, creative experience from there. And then again, you've got those specialist items. So if we look at things like Copilot for security, you've got a smaller number of people who are going to be in there making the value of that. Some of the more in-depth items within Copilot for Copilot in Fabric, where you really want to dig into that data and making the use of that. And actually, if you layer that into that Copilot ecosystem, you can start to see those ones that are available off the shelf of Copilot for Microsoft 365, those ones that are in the licenses you often have already, those more specialist tools, as well as those scenarios where you can start to bring in those Azure OpenAI powered with things like Azure AI Studio and Copilot Studio. So you've got a way to get started with all these on there.
I like how you've broken this up into, you've sliced and diced it by here are, what is the word? Not job roles per se, but persona, right? Is it an everyone? Is it a specialized job? Or is it like, a build your own thing? Or is it for customers, for employees, for something very specific? And some are for everyone, right? Like you're saying, Bing and Windows can be used by everyone for everything. You would use it differently than me, different than our friends in production studio, different than our teacher friends. But there's one, like the Copilot for Service, for example. There is a set of people who will use that, and they will be power users. Then there'll be amateur users like me, and I'll say, oh, that's interesting. I bet I could use it for this thing. But more likely, it's solving a very specific, long-running, decades-old problem for a set of people who've had this issue for a long, long time. And I like how you've laid this out. So not every Copilot is for you. There's going to be some that are for you, most not for you.
And what I love with these is things like the Copilot for Service is Microsoft's got that experience that it's bringing towards this to not just say, here's an LLM, here's a load of techie stuff, that's going to make it better. Actually, they tailored it to work well in those experiences. They've embedded, whether it's Dynamics or the other tools in there to make that happen. They've enabled that acceleration. And that beautifully ties on to my next slide around aligning those tools together. So if we look at all those different Copilots that are there from Microsoft, you can enable those. You can go, great, thanks, Microsoft. Take my money. I'm going to do adoption. I'm going to help people understand it. I'm going to help build the habits, that change that is needed from there. But I don't need to build something myself. I can make that happen and get that real value from it as well. But what I really love with Microsoft is, in many cases, they understand that that's not everything. Unfortunately, there are some places out there that don't just use Microsoft technology. There's other things. And I think that's so, so important. So they bring that capability to extend to kind of, whether it's with low code or pro code, to integrate other systems, to kind of scale out Copilot, to connect to those different areas of knowledge, those different services, to take action, whether it's those microtransactions, those larger scale things that you can connect to. But also, you can scale in with this. So the example I hear a lot is, I've got my policies. Now I'm working for a consulting firm. We help a lot of people with policies. And if I go searching for a certain policy, it has been known occasionally that where I've worked on other projects, those are the most recent documents, those come up to me. So I want to know that when I ask Copilot a question about policies, it scales it towards those because it knows more likely I meet one of our policies on there. So you can direct to specific things. Those of us who come from a SharePoint world, it's that best bets from the good old SharePoint place. How can you tailor people towards this? So a lot of people think about extending about just bringing in other systems and connecting there. It's also getting about more specific results based on what people want as well. Right. I think that's really important as well to that.
Prioritize these, right? Rather than random information, prioritize this information from my data source over here that we've curated for some X number of years. So yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. We then move on to the automates. And I love this one because I originally put this slide together and I was kind of thinking things like Power Automate and bringing generative AI into that, maybe summarizing and making it easier to get those business processes happening. But with this world that's happening now, agentification comes into this. How can we build these automated Gen AI agents that fulfill specific roles and can carry on doing that in the background to make things more efficient as well? So I think if I was going to talk about an exciting one, keep an eye on that. That's growing and growing and growing. Will be more coming from that as well.
And automation is like the cornerstone of agentification of anything, right? Whether it's Copilot, build your own, etc. Being able to automate things well and knowing how to automate and when to automate and being like, be it trigger based or like an automatic, it's key. So people who are wondering how to prepare for an agentic future, get really good at automation. I cannot say enough. I'm so glad you said it too.
And then I think there's also, as I talked about, there's that custom Copilot. So I love Copilot from Microsoft 365. It's a base of things. You can extend it. But there are cases where you want to build something specific, whether you're going to it for a very specific reason. Maybe you've got customers within there and you want to enable that Copilot for them. You may want to isolate this within one of your existing systems, that it doesn't make sense to kind of bring that Copilot for M365 interface. You want it there in the flow of work. And that's where some of those custom Copilots fit within there. You've got those custom engines. You might drill into that and train your own LLM that you want to bring into that system and say, no, this is specifically for that area. For me, I still hope a lot of that sits within Teams and sits within that flow of work. So it's natural and easy to find within there. But there's so many cases where you don't just want to extend. You want to be very focused. That's just what you need. And that's where a lot of the custom parts of that come into.
So one custom Copilot you like is for our accessibility team. We get a lot of questions from for the disability answer desk, right? People with disabilities calling in and saying, hey, what colorblind tools do you have, et cetera? Tools for colorblind people. And answering those calls or getting someone on the phone takes quite a long time, especially if it's like, hey, here's the list of tools. So the accessibility team actually built I call it a dad bot, which I thought you'd appreciate, but it's the disability answer desk bot called Ask Accessibility, which just lives on the site. All it does is pull from the accessibility websites at Microsoft. That's it. It doesn't pull from random information on the internet. It doesn't pull from like any sort of strange third-party database. It's here's the data sources, give answers about this using basic search API. And I think that kind of super targeted thing is exactly what Custom Copilot is for. Like, we're not trying to do M365. Absolutely. We're not trying to extend to Azure Copilot. We just want answers from this data source in this UX. That's it. So yeah, it's fun seeing examples like that.
I think other ones we're looking at have been interesting is that frontline worker. Frontline workers are not going to go in for Copilot for Microsoft 365. There isn't the value to deliver there, but they've got specific needs. I imagine you can have a custom Copilot on your phone, click and tap and talk to it and say, I want to book leave between this time, or I want to swap shifts with it between this time, or I want to find out what the policy is for, I've got a piece of something stuck in my eye. Having that's very tailored to their own specific personas brings so much more value to that as well. And that can link in. What I love about the extension and the customization is they don't have to be fully exclusive. You could bring that same logic towards there. Right. So if I have a Copilot for M365, I can surface some of that key policy information and tasks within there. If I've got a custom Copilot that I'm going in as a frontline worker, that could be the same source of knowledge. It could be those same microtransactions that you want to take place that can bring that together. And you're bringing together these different areas of the organization a lot more effectively as well.
That's exactly it. And one of the things I've heard you tell people when do you extend versus when do you custom is if you are already using that app and it has a Copilot, use it. You don't need to build something special to do the same thing. Just use the one in the app. But if the app does not have one, say it's some custom built app, then you can jam in a Copilot, right? Custom build one for it. And I know Power Apps has that capability. Like you can build your own Copilot into a Power App you built yourself, which is really cool. Okay, Kevin. So I want you back on the show. And I want us to dig into extensibility, okay? Extending Copilot, because that one is a fascinating space because there's, I feel 5 different ways, probably more coming, ways to do it. And I'd love to get your take on that. But right now, we're going to thank Kevin for joining us today to give us his overall workflow of building a Copilot and AI strategy. And we will see you all next time on Copilot Learning Hub live. Thank you, Kevin.